My name is Stephen G. Fullwood. I'm the project director for the Black and Lesbian Archive, which is at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, New York Public Library. What we know about Black LGBT life in the 1950s and 1960s is very little. Scholars have yet to sort of uncover the sort of interior lives that Black gays and lesbians were leading during the 50s and 60s. We have some information about James Baldwin and information about Bayard Rustin, but for the most part, our information has been very limited in relationship to history as well as in relationship to LGBT history in general. For example, in the 1940s, post-World War II, a lot of soldiers migrated to larger cities to experience gay life as out gay men. And so some of those stories have been told and are being told, but the counterparts, the Black soldiers, the Black male soldiers at the time, these stories aren't being told or haven't been told and haven't been uncovered. In the 1950s, if you were to look at the magazines Jet, Ebony, or the Amsterdam News, the newspaper, you'd see that there were no stories about homosexuality or lesbianism. What you did see, however, were stories about transvestites and transsexuals, which were more interested in sort of the freaky nature so that people could read these periodicals and feel kind of comfortable about their own life, that this stuff was over here. We can't forget Little Richard, we can't forget drag balls and this sort of thing, but those were sort of seen as like, you know, entertainment, sort of gestury, but not to really talk about what, on the ground, what Black LGBT life looked like for people, regular people, living in Harlem, living in anywhere in New York City, essentially. What we're trying to do at the Black and Lesbian Archive is to create an archive that spans the recorded history of Black LGBT people. And what that means is not just magazines, newsletters, posters, photographs, and those sorts of things, but also things like letters, correspondence, diaries, things that kind of give you a sense of what it looked like for someone to be gay or lesbian and how they named it. In fact, if there was any name for it at all during that point. In fact, we know that much later in the history of LGBT history, that's when people started to sort of adopt names in the 70s around lesbian, bisexual. Prior to that, in the 50s, it was homophile. People preferred that, or largely white people. It's still unknown about how Black folks, for the most part, created languages that talked about the quality of their lives as whole people, not just as Black people or as women, but also as men or women who happen to be same-gender loving. The BGLA at this point has collected largely printed materials, which includes magazines, journals, posters, photographs, and we're really hoping to do more work by finding some of that more personal stuff, those letters, those diaries that help give us a hint of what it might have been like for someone growing up in the 50s in Harlem or in the 60s in Harlem, prior to Stonewall, prior to the Gay Liberation Front, prior to the Mattachine Society, prior to One or Ladder magazine. So that's the type of thing that I'm engaged in, that's the type of work I'm engaged in doing, and I'm very, very excited by Nancybelle Valentine's contribution to that history as a member of Salsa Soul Sisters, but also just her life in general. I think that she's an amazing person, and for every Nancybelle Valentine that I can hold and talk to and look at, there are dozens, maybe even hundreds of other people who have similar stories or have different takes, you know, different ways of being in the world that have yet to be uncovered and sort of like, you know, studied and revered in some ways and celebrated. So that's